In Dungeons and Dragons, conditions are something that we use all the time, and at least for me, I always have to look up what they mean. I can never remember it. So today, we're going to go over the Dungeons and Dragons conditions. Hey fellow Game Masters, I'm Richard Quiner, and welcome to the RPG Daily, your daily dose of all things tabletop role-playing games, helping you build your world and master your game. Like I said, today we're talking about conditions in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. There are currently 15 different conditions that are kind of the basics. I believe there are some others that come into play in specific situations, but we're only talking about the basic ones. I almost always have to look these conditions up to make sure I'm enforcing them correctly, so I thought this video would be a good refresher for myself, and maybe a refresher for you too. We'll see. A condition in Dungeons & Dragons is something that has an impact on a creature in the game. Usually it's negative, but sometimes it can be a positive impact too. It really depends on the circumstance. And so now let's dive into all of them. First up is being blinded. Blind is a pretty straightforward situation. You just can't see anything. This doesn't necessarily mean you're always blind, it's just in that moment. So what does this mean mechanically for your character or the creature? First off, they automatically fail any ability checks that require them to see. That makes sense. Any attacks on the blind creature have advantage, and any attacks that the blind creature makes have disadvantage. Next up is charmed. Charmed is, becoming a buddy of somebody, being friendly, and having a positive look on their personality and who they are. When a creature is charmed, the first thing they cannot do is attack their charmer. So the charmee cannot attack the charmer. They also cannot target the charmer with any harmful spells or abilities. And last, the charmer gains advantage on any ability checks that require social skills or social interaction with the charmed creature. Next up is deafened. This means the creature cannot hear, just like blind. The only negative side effect of this is that the deafened creature automatically fails any ability checks that require them to hear. The next condition is exhaustion. Exhaustion has a little more in-depth mechanics. There are several levels of exhaustion. What is it? Exhaustion is being tired. It's being extremely tired that it has a negative impact on your ability to perform different things. So like I said, it has different levels. At level 1 exhaustion, you roll ability checks with disadvantage. At level 2 exhaustion, your movement speed is halved. At level 3, you get disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws. At level 4, your movement speed is 0. At level 4, your max hit points is actually halved. At level 5, your movement speed is reduced to 0. And at level 6, you're dead. You can die of exhaustion. This is something that requires a little bit of management in the game. The Berserker Barbarian actually imposes exhaustion on themselves by using their frenzy raging. There's a lot to do with this. The important thing to remember though is as you go up in level, so when you go from level 1 to level 2, you don't just ignore the previous level conditions, you stack onto that. So at level 2, for example, yes, your movement speed is halved, but on top of that, you are rolling your ability checks with disadvantage. And the same occurs all the way up through the levels until level 6, you die. The next one is frightened. You are scared of something or someone and have to act accordingly to that. First up, the frightened creature cannot move closer to the source of its fear. So if it's another creature, they can't actually close any distance with that creature. They have to move away or keep their distance. Also, the frightened creature has disadvantage on any ability checks or attack rolls while the source of its fear is within its line of sight. So in order to break fear, you want to get away and keep that creature or the source of your fear out of your sight for a little while to kind of break that fear. Next up is incapacitated. This one comes into play a lot with the later conditions we're going to talk about. This one means you're stuck. And as a side effect of being stuck, you cannot take any actions or reactions. And yes, bonus actions count as actions. So you just cannot do anything on your turn. The next condition is grappled. This is being held or held by something. Usually another creature will grapple you. When a creature is grappled, their speed becomes 0. They cannot move. And there are 2 ways for a grapple to be broken. First up, the grappler could be incapacitated. When that happens, the grapple is broken. The other option is if something a little more powerful were to force the grappler and grapplee apart, such as a thunder wave or something like that, that might knock them apart. That would break the grapple. Next up is a little more positive condition, and that is the condition of invisible. You cannot be seen by another creature unless they have a special sense or ability that lets them see things that are invisible. Any attack rolls against a creature who is invisible is done with disadvantage, but this creature can still make noise, which means they still might have to roll some stealth checks to sneak around. Even though they can't be seen, they can be heard, they can leave footprints. They're not perfectly hidden yet. The next condition is petrified. This is when the object or creature physically turns into another substance, such as stone or perhaps wood, depends on the flavor that your DM wants to use. When a creature is petrified, any non-magical items that they are holding also turns into that substance with them, so they kind of become a statue with all their gear. They are also incapacitated, so if you remember we talked about that just a minute ago, that happens. They also cannot move, speak, and are oblivious to their surroundings. They're just in their own little cocoon of stone or wood. Any attacks against a petrified creature are rolled with advantage, and that creature will also auto-fail any strength or dexterity saving throws. So they're not in a great spot to move around, obviously, so they're going to be hit. They could be hit by a lot of spells and things. The plus side of being petrified is that creature is also resistant to all damage types, and they are immune to poison and diseases. If the creature had poison or disease in their body already, the poison or disease would not just disappear when they're petrified, but it would be suspended along with the creature. Tying that into the next condition, which is poisoned. The poisoned creature has had some poison ingested or a venom kind of injected into them somehow. When a creature is poisoned, they have disadvantage on any attack rolls and ability checks. Next is prone. A creature is lying on the ground, just physically lying on the ground. That's prone. A creature who is prone, if they try to make an attack roll, they have disadvantage on that attack roll. If anyone tries to attack the prone creature, it's where it gets a little complicated. If the attacker is in melee range and attacking the prone creature, they roll their attack with advantage. If the attacker is at a range, perhaps shooting a bow and arrow at them, that attack is made with disadvantage. Prone creatures can crawl, but their movement speed is halved, and they can end the prone condition by standing up. Standing up requires half of your movements. This has some controversy in the community. People are saying, why would a monk that can run 60 feet have to spend 30 feet to get up when a creature that can only run 30 feet only has to spend 15 feet to get up? They made this as the catch-all, half of your movement speed to stand up. That is how it is. If you want to homebrew it and change that rule, that's up to you. Next up is being restrained, which is not quite incapacitated, but it's a little more than being grappled. When you're restrained, your movement speed is reduced to 0. Oftentimes it could be a rope or some vines are holding on to you. When you are restrained, your movement speed is reduced to 0, and you don't get any bonuses to your movement. Any attacks on the restrained creature have advantage, and if that creature makes any attacks, they have disadvantage. And any dexterity saves that the creature tries to make while restrained are rolled with disadvantage. So a restrained creature can be a very good target in a combat situation. Next is the stunned condition, which is kind of a shock to the system. It's a much shorter term condition that is usually imposed by monks quite a bit, can do this, but it is pretty effective. A creature who is stunned, first off, is incapacitated. They cannot make any actions, reactions, or bonus actions. Next up, their movement speed is reduced to 0 while they are stunned, and they can only speak with kind of faltering words, like this. A stunned creature will automatically fail any strength and dexterity saving throws, and any attacks against the creature are rolled with advantage. The last condition is the creature is unconscious. This is the knockout blow. This is reducing a creature to 0, or just making them unconscious with a sleep, perhaps. That could also do it. When a creature is unconscious, they are incapacitated. They also cannot move, speak, and are unaware of their surroundings. When they become unconscious, they will fall prone and drop whatever item they are carrying at the time. This will cause them also to auto-fail any strength or dexterity saving throws. And if anyone, while this creature is unconscious, decides to attack them, they roll their attacks with advantage. If the attacker hits the creature and is within 5 feet of them, that attack is a critical hit. So it's a really dangerous spot to be in, being unconscious, but of course they can be woken up. If they have been reduced to 0 HP, all they have to do is get a little more healing. If they were put out by a sleep spell, maybe they could counteract that spell. There are options. So those are the 15 conditions of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. If you somehow commit that to memory, let me know how you did it in the comments below. I want to know. I would rather not have to look these up every time they come up. Anyways, I've been Richard. Thanks for watching.